Hi, Joseph. How have you been?
Good, and yourself?
I've been doing well. Thank you for asking. How was your time apart since our last meeting? And how was life treating you? How are you feeling?
It's been up and down, but mostly up.
That's good. That's good to hear. Well, it's good to see you. I'm excited to get into our session today. Before we start, I just want to very briefly review our privacy and disclosure statement. It's the same statement we normally go over. Just very briefly hit on a few topics and then we'll get into our session, okay?
Okay,
So as you know, I'm a graduate student working towards my master's degree in professional counseling. Everything we talk about in these sessions is always recorded, but those recordings are only for my view, my professor or classmate view, just for professional review of how I'm executing and participating in our sessions, okay?
okay,
And after the completion of my course and degree, all of these recordings will be destroyed. They are not kept. And just to kind of go over just some of your rights, just to refresh, it's your right at any time to inquire about our processes, procedures. You are always more than welcome to make recommendations, state that you want something reformed or redone. You are just as much a participant in this as I am. Okay.
okay,
And once you begin counseling, there's no obligation to continue. You're welcome to terminate at any time. I would just like for us to to participate in that termination session together. And my services are always, to the best of my ability, in a professional manner. However, you are always welcome to, if you have a complaint or you have any concerns, my supervisor is always available. Okay.
yes, ma'am.
And just kind of about the confidentiality portion, I will always keep everything we talk about confidential unless it is determined that you are a danger to yourself or others. Any sort of child or elder abuse or neglect, I have to report that. If your records are ever subpoenaed by court of law, I would provide that. And if you have any sort of sexual contact with a mental health provider, I would need to report that as well. And if your insurance, your HMO ever requested anything, I would report that or provide that information. And if you ever requested for me to send that information, I would gladly be able to provide that as well. Or if you ever had a malpractice suit come against me, records would need to be provided as well. Okay.
Okay,
All right. So now that we have went over that, let's go ahead and get into our session for today. And last time we met, we had talked about some goals, some homework goals that we had set regarding some techniques we wanted you to try to see how they implemented for you. And one of those first homework goals or techniques that we had talked about was you utilizing an online shopping delivery slash pickup lane method for the grocery shopping. Did you have a chance to give that method a try?
yes, I did it twice. I did it once for like a smaller batch of stuff to see, like it was more of like home goods type stuff, like tissue paper and stuff like that.
Right.
And then I did a larger one that included food and those things as well. Um, the smaller one wasn't terrible. Um, it was definitely efficient in terms of like time and stuff like that because it was just something that I could do easily while I was just sitting at home and then just have to go there, and it takes probably like maybe 5 or 10 minutes depending on how long it takes for them to grab the stuff and come out. Um, I did have a little bit of a harder time on the food, uh, the bigger one that included food just because um my feelings already towards people and how they act to themselves and somewhat being, I guess, selfish, not really thinking of others, kind of gave me the issue of, well, I'm entrusting somebody else to ensure that I get the best quality of food of the stuff that I picked out. Whereas, like, if I was there, checking everything and doing all that, and I would feel little bit more confident in the quality of food that I particularly like. And so that was kind of the big issue that I had. But besides that, as far as not having to be out in public, it worked perfectly fine, obviously.
Okay. So I think what I'm hearing or what you're describing to me in pertaining to that particular technique was if it's something smaller, something that maybe you don't have too much particular investment in terms of a roll of paper towels is much different than a couple of steaks in terms of quality, what it looks like, your preferences. It's a little bit easier when it's something small that can be generically picked out and delivered, and that works in terms of efficiency or not having to physically go in person. But when it's a bigger order, multiple things, especially those specific things that we all have food preferences and we all like to pick out our own food and ensure we're getting a good quality. Is the expiration date being picked out? What does it look like? Would I like this? And then, of course, people are human. They can make mistakes and grab the wrong thing or swap things. That could potentially be bringing a little bit more anxiety that you didn't already have or need to have to the situation. Given that if it's just not what you wanted or what you ordered, or just not to the standard. And so it's almost kind of, you know, is this really helping me versus when I was there, I did experience these things, but at least I was able to pick out exactly what it was that I wanted. I got the thing I needed. So, okay, so I think what I'm hearing is it had some good positives, but there were some other negatives that probably, would you say, are just not realistic for you long term?
Um, yeah, I mean it's something that I would try again, just to get a better feel for it, and then see if what is it called? Like whenever you go through multiple experiences and you have a good experience, you're more inclined to do it because you have that thought process. So if I do that and I continue to have a good experience with it, I would be more inclined to do it. It's just getting over that initial factor of trusting somebody else to have the same mindset as I do towards uh, my own food, which is, well, I guess you kind of do the same thing whenever you go out to eat, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Okay. So maybe that technique or that goal we set is a little bit more realistic, sparingly here and there when your schedule just really doesn't allow for you to get out as quickly, or those smaller orders like you had stated. Maybe something that's a bag of chips may not be as selective as a piece of meat. And so maybe
mhm.
if it's those things that you're not too really concerned about, the quality, or it's going to be the same even if you are physically there. It maybe
Right.
be more realistic to implement the goal that way, or for house supplies or pet supplies versus a lot of the fresh produce or the meat, the dairy, those things that we like to visually inspect.
Yeah, I can see doing it on like a specific event, like say it's like a game day thing and you want to have like some hot dogs and hot dog buns. Like it's very rare to be able to, I guess, mess something up like that, you know, or get
Yeah.
like hamburgers and hamburger buns. Like it's pretty straightforward. So that would be kind of easy and you're not taking a lot of time having to leave and go and do the shopping and all that stuff. So I could see
Okay.
doing it with something like that, like
Okay.
preparing yourself for an event or something like that.
Okay, so that's a good technique that we will keep in mind that matches those particular requirements. So, it may be ideal to apply there. Our next goal that we had talked about was the use of headphones and music during grocery shopping. Did you also have a chance to potentially utilize that one?
Yes, I did it twice going into to shopping for big thing like the weekly food and it worked out fine for me. One just because I like music enough to where it kind of takes me away from what I'm doing in the moment. So I was able to get what I needed to be done, able to stay on track of the things that I needed to get done, but also kind of be out of the element that I'm normally in because I'm kind of not worried about like completing the task at hand as quickly and as efficiently as possible just because I'm listening to music and just enjoying the music.
Yeah.
Um, it also helped change like the feeling that I had going into it just because of that change of, not worried about getting this done in record time and getting back to the house. It was more of let me go out and just focus on listening to the music and just making sure the things got done was kind of like the second thing to think about, you know? And
Okay.
so, yeah.
Did you, when you were listening to the music while in the grocery store and you were still encountering those people or maybe the blockades of not being able to just get in and get out, did you
Mhm.
find the music? Did you find yourself able to focus on the music, or did you find yourself at any times feeling overwhelmed by the music? How was that feeling of the music while you were in the situation?
Um, it was it was kind of weird because the things would happen and it would take me a little while. It gave me the option to think about how I was going to quote unquote like attack the situation just because I was in the middle of listening to music, possibly like singing to myself or whatever. And so I would get through that little like 1, 2 seconds of singing the song or whatnot, and then
Right.
it gave me the time frame to think about uh, the situation itself and just uh, is it worth ruining, the feeling that I'm already feeling to get upset at somebody being in my way instead of just saying,
Right.
excuse me, and then go back to listening and singing to the music.
Okay. Okay. So I think what I'm hearing in terms of that goal was it gave you a bit more of a positive response because it brought an element that you already like, which is music. It gave you a task to focus on reoccurringly while you're there, but an enjoyable task so that even when you were met with those negative obstacles, it was almost like a pause. It was a second of pause because you were in the moment of enjoyment, and it gave you a chance to kind of reflect, is this something that I need to stop listening or stop focusing on my music or singing the lyrics in my mind to generate a negative thought or a negative response to this? And it sounds like you're saying majority of the time it was a no, it's not worth me doing that. I'm going to continue to listen and experience the lyrics. And then before I knew it, they were out of the way and I'm on my way.
Right.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad that that skill or that particular technique, it just resonated with you personally, given the music tie, the music aspect. I was hoping that that was a experience you were going to get to have, so I'm glad to hear that. And is that something that you could see yourself doing, long term, frequently bring those along with you and utilize that?
No, for sure.
Okay. Okay, good. That's good. Our last goal that we had talked about last week, the last kind of homework goal that we had was in terms of reframing your thoughts when you're in those moments. And so, did you have a particular thought that you wrote down or brought in with you regarding when you're feeling anxious, angry, irritable, and that particular thought regarding a situation or a person would come up? Did you have one of those written down to bring it with you?
Yeah, so there was a situation where I was in what I was in. I was in like the frozen food section
Mhm.
where they had like the ice cream and then they also had on the other side like frozen frozen food like chicken and fish and stuff like that.
Right.
And it was a little like crowded, but there was just this person that had it was her and she had a baby in the cart, but then she had two other kids that she wasn't really like paying attention to that well.
Mhm.
And so they were all kind of just in the area. And when I first walked up, I had probably like the same thought process everybody else has that, you should probably be watching your kids. But um, it it irritated me enough to where I felt like what is it like when you like prejudgment, like you're already in the process of like, oh, here we go again, another
Right.
whatever and all that stuff. And so luckily it was during that time that I was listening to my headphones, but the initial thought process came in, and then that's when I had to think to myself, is this couple of seconds to handle the situation of, hey, excuse me, yada, 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 is it worth ruining 2 to 3 hours of my day because it's gonna make me feel a certain way throughout the day. And yeah, that's when I just decided that I would just worry about listening to my music and going about my day. But it definitely popped up for sure.
Okay. In that scenario that you're describing to me, were you still able to complete your objective of grabbing what you needed afterwards? Or did you have to just completely X that off of your list and move on
No, I was able to get the
to get
item.
what you needed?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So regarding that particular thought process, what I'm hearing is in that moment of the anxiety or the irritability or the judgment that is arising because you have a clear goal, it is right in front of you. However, somebody else is there and they're not there in an efficient manner. They're there in what seems to feel like a selfish manner. They're blocking the way. Doesn't really seem that they're focused on grabbing an item, moving forward. They're kind of just there in their own element, their own time, and it prevents you from being able to access that. And so that initial thought and those initial feelings start to arise where, like you're stating, I've experienced this before. I know what this is. Here we go again. This person, it sounds as though we're thinking that this person is in their own world, maybe operating from a selfish standpoint. They're not really concerned about are they blocking something for someone else in a public space. However, you're also stating that you had the headphone technique working for you, and that was able to give you those couple of seconds of pause before taking it any further or getting into that feeling any further to where now it's going to ruin our day. You were able to pull yourself out of that and listen to the music until the situation passed and you could grab what you need. And so, this particular technique or goal is just aimed towards we're going to look at those thoughts and we're going to reframe them. So the emotions and the thoughts are perfectly normal. We're human beings, we have emotions, we have thoughts. The goal isn't to never experience a negative emotion or never experience a negative thought. That's a very unrealistic goal. The goal is for us to analyze when the thought or the emotion happens. The goal is for us to recognize that it's there, to analyze, who are you? Why are you here? What are you saying in terms of the thought or the emotion? And then we want to challenge it to see, is this valid? Is this good for me long term? And then I want to reframe you. I want to reposition you in a way that is actually going to help me in the long run. And
Right.
so regarding the particular thought that you just gave me, instead of us focusing on this particular woman as maybe being aloof or not necessarily caring about anyone else, or maybe just operating from a selfish standpoint, what we can do is we can try to analyze the situation and say, well, maybe this person is also dealing with some anxiety. She's here by herself. She's got some young children with her. I'm sure she's probably feeling pretty anxious. I think I would feel anxious if I had a bunch of kids that I'm responsible for, but I'm also trying to execute this task. Maybe she's even ran into a couple of people blocking the way. Maybe she's kind of frozen in her tracks, or maybe she's feeling anxious. Maybe she forgot something on her list, or she's trying to rummage through and see, did I forget anything? And so, while it doesn't necessarily just make it okay that someone's blocking an area that we need to access, we understand that that's still an inconvenience. Maybe we can apply a little bit of empathy, maybe some understanding, or maybe just some questioning about, am I just assuming that this person in front of me doesn't care when maybe they just don't know? Or maybe they're just not aware. Um, Maybe she thought she was farther enough away, or she didn't notice that you were there, or she didn't think she was blocking that particular area, but maybe she was, you know? And so, can we challenge those thoughts of, did this person actually turn around and look at me and say, I'm going to block this way and I don't care about you? Or am I just assuming? Or am I just applying past experiences to now everybody?
Right.
And we want to maybe challenge it a little. And we want to say, okay, well, she didn't clearly look at me and just decide to stand there. So maybe she just doesn't realize, or she's got her own objectives, or maybe she's feeling a little overwhelmed. And so I'm not going to assume those things about her.
Mhm.
Maybe I will try to wait a couple of seconds, listen to my music, or maybe walk in, excuse me, ma'am, can I get into that area? And hopefully the response of her is, oh, yes, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were there.
Right.
And so, regarding that particular thought, is that something that, is there any particular, or I guess maybe we could try an exercise if I'm someone who's blocking the way. Maybe we've met in a couple of different aisles and I've just consistently kind of been in my own world. I clearly seem like maybe I'm focused on my task at hand, or maybe I'm just not really having a direction, but I'm clearly just kind of doing whatever. I'm standing in the middle of the aisle. I've got my cart turned sideways, what have you. And that initial negative thought pops up. How would you try to, give me an example of how you would try to reframe your thought in that moment regarding me blocking your way?
Mm, maybe, I guess, look at it from a different point of view of maybe if it's affecting me that much, maybe it's selfish on my side to say, oh, this is always like woe is me type of thing. Like, oh, this is always happening to me. Uh, and just think again, it's only going to be a couple of seconds to get through the process. So it's not really a full waste of your day. Like
Mm,
if you look at it in the long run, say it happens, I don't know, like at most 10 times, which is kind of crazy and rare that it would happen 10 times in the
right,
time span that you're shopping. I mean, that's basically maybe a minute, if that, taken out of your time of your day, because you never know what's going to happen. Like, you never know if all that's going to really affect, like, oh, maybe I have a bigger backup when I go to checkout, or you never know those things. So
right.
should only be thinking about in terms of when you're actually going through it. Um, so yeah, maybe just think of it that way. Just say, hey, these things happen. Yes, you had to go through these little obstacles, but it really didn't affect or change the full scale of your day that you're getting all hyped up and worried about, you know?
Okay. Okay. No, I like that perspective. It sounds like you're stating, try to have a conversation and understanding with myself of this is just an inconvenient couple of 5 minutes. It's not an inconvenient several hours or several days. So once I can get through this process, the rest of the day is mine to be as I want. This doesn't have to determine the remainder of my 24 hours in this span of 10, 15 minutes of those specific instances.
Right.
Okay, yeah, that's a great perspective to have. That's strong because you are you're self-monitoring and you're self-managing your thoughts and your emotions, not just in that moment, but for how the remainder of your day is going to go.
Right.
Okay. Well, so we are at a point that I wanted to check in with you to see how do you feel about sessions going forward regarding everything we've implemented, we've talked about. Do you feel that this is a good foundation towards those original counseling goals that you came into the first session with?
Yeah, I think that the two processes that we talked about are going to work. Um, if I ever get to the point, it's like it's a good difference in solutions, whereas if I really just don't feel like dealing with people like during the day for whatever reason, then I
Yeah,
always have the option of doing the online and just dealing with the trust factor.
right.
And then if I have a big issue of, well, a lot of things over the past, I don't know, couple of weeks has been trust issues things. Well, let me just go ahead and go and do it by myself and put the headphones on and, go through that process. So I have a good two processes that I can work with to give me varying uh, outcomes.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And since that is kind of where we're at and you're feeling good with those techniques and you feel like we've accomplished those goals for you to implement and try, um, we are going to wrap up our last session here today. However, if you ever find yourself in a particular, you know, a moment or a time period where you feel like these things are not working for you anymore, and how you'll kind of know that is I just want you to focus on self-monitoring while you're self-managing. So our tools are going to help you self-manage. However, self-monitoring is just a frequent check in with yourself. Have I been using the tools? Are they still working for me? Have I gone back to the original starting point? And how am I controlling and reframing those thoughts? And if you find yourself saying, absolutely, I'm definitely using those tools, and it's not perfect 100% of the time, but majority of the time it alleviates the stress and the thoughts. And when I do have those thoughts, I can usually talk to myself in the moment or when I get home and I reframe my thought process and the rest of the day is mine. That self-monitoring tells me this is going really good. I probably don't need to check back in with my counselor. However, if the opposite of that is coming about, I'm not using the techniques, or if I am using them, they're just not working anymore. I'm not experiencing the reducing in the anxiety or the judgment or the anger or hostility. And when I have these thoughts, they're ruminating. I can't switch them around. I can't find an alternative. They ruin my day. That tells me, okay, I need to check back in. That self-monitoring says we need to check back in and talk again. Okay.
Okay.
And so I would just like to follow up with you in about 2 weeks, if that's all right with you. Just a brief check-in. I can just send you an email, ask how you're doing, just to make sure you're doing all right. And then if everything is good, you're always welcome to reach out to me if you ever need to talk or if you just want to meet. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Wonderful. Well, I thank you for your time and I thank you for meeting. And it was good seeing you again.
Yep. Same to you.
All right. Take care. I will reach back out in 2 weeks. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Goodbye, Joseph.
Bye.